In the quiet, sun-drenched town of Boynton Beach, Florida, two identical twins, Alexandria and Anastasia Duval, seemed to have it all. They were beautiful, charismatic, and ran a successful yoga studio together called Twin Power Yoga. From the outside, their bond seemed unbreakable, a perfect mirror image of success and sisterly love. But beneath the surface of their shared smiles and synchronized yoga poses, a dark and turbulent current was pulling them apart. Their story, which began with shared dreams, would end in a twisted saga of betrayal, mystery, and a deadly plunge off a cliff that left one sister dead and the other facing a murder charge. This is the tragic tale of the Duval twins, where the line between love and hate blurred into a fatal obsession. Alexandria and Anastasia, born Allison and Dado, had spent their lives as an inseparable unit. They moved from state to state, frequently changing their names and reinventing themselves. From Florida to Utah to Hawaii, they chased a life of luxury and spiritual enlightenment, leaving a trail of failed businesses, mounting debts, and confused acquaintances in their wake. People who knew them described their relationship as unusually intense, almost codependent. They dressed alike, spoke in unison, and seemed to share a single mind. But this intense closeness also bred a fierce and toxic rivalry. Friends and former employees reported explosive arguments that could turn violent in an instant, with hair-pulling, scratching, and screaming matches becoming a regular occurrence. Their bond was a pressure cooker, and it was about to explode. The twins' final chapter began when they moved to the paradise island of Maui, Hawaii, hoping for yet another fresh start. But their old demons followed them. The arguments escalated in frequency and intensity. On May 29, 2016, witnesses saw the twins' Ford Explorer stopped in the middle of the Hana Highway. They were screaming at each other, the driver pulling the passenger's hair. Then, the SUV accelerated, swerved sharply, and plunged 200 feet off a rocky cliff. The crash was horrific. Alexandria, who was in the driver's seat, survived with serious injuries. Anastasia, in the passenger seat, was killed instantly. When first responders arrived at the chaotic scene, they found a scene of utter devastation. The mangled wreck of the SUV was wedged against the rocks below, battered by the crashing waves. Alexandria was airlifted to a hospital, while recovery teams worked to retrieve Anastasia's body. At first, it seemed like a tragic accident, a horrifying end to a heated argument. But as investigators began to piece together the events of that day, a more sinister picture started to emerge. Analysis of the vehicle's data recorder revealed something chilling. The data showed that the steering wheel was jerked sharply to the left, and there was hard acceleration right before the vehicle went over the edge. There was no evidence of braking. This wasn't a driver losing control. This was a deliberate act. The fight witnesses had seen on the highway wasn't just a simple spat. It was the climax of a lifelong rivalry that had turned deadly. Based on this evidence, prosecutors made a shocking decision. They charged Alexandria Duval with the second-degree murder of her own twin sister. The legal battle that followed was as dramatic and bizarre as the twins' lives. Alexandria's defense attorney, Bernie Bervar, argued that the crash was a tragic accident. He claimed that Anastasia had grabbed the steering wheel during the fight, causing Alexandria to lose control. It was a case of he said, she said, but one of the key witnesses was dead. The prosecution, led by Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Emlyn Heger, painted a different picture. They presented evidence of the twins' volatile history, their financial troubles, and the eyewitness accounts of the violent altercation just moments before the plunge. They argued that Alexandria, in a fit of rage, had intentionally driven off that cliff with the intent to kill her sister. The trial was a media sensation. The courtroom was captivated by the story of the yoga twins. Friends, former partners, and acquaintances testified, each adding a new layer to the complex and toxic relationship between the sisters. They spoke of a bond so enmeshed that it was impossible to tell where one sister ended and the other began. They described a pattern of mutual destruction, where the twins would build each other up only to tear each other down. One boyfriend testified that he once had to physically separate them during a fight where they were trying to push each other into a wall. The prosecution argued this was the final, fatal chapter in that long history of violence. The defense, however, focused on the lack of definitive proof. How could anyone know for sure what happened inside that car during its final, terrifying moments? They argued that the prosecution's case was built on speculation. They portrayed Alexandria as a grieving sister, traumatized by the loss of her other half, now being wrongfully accused of her murder. Alexandria herself did not testify, but her presence in the courtroom was a constant, silent reminder of the tragedy. She often appeared somber, the surviving half of a shattered hull. The key to the case came down to a single moment, the hard acceleration and the sharp turn. Was it a deliberate act of murder, as the prosecution claimed? Or was it the result of a panicked struggle for control of the wheel, as the defense suggested? The judge, sitting without a jury, had to decide. He had to look into the heart of a relationship he described as stressful, exhausting, and destructive, and determine if that toxicity had finally crossed the line into premeditated violence. In a stunning verdict that shocked many, Judge Peter Cahill acquitted Alexandria Duval of murder. He stated that while the circumstances were deeply suspicious, the prosecution had not proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt. He acknowledged the violent struggle in the car but concluded that he couldn't rule out the possibility that Anastasia had grabbed the wheel or Alexandria's hair, causing the crash. There was simply too much ambiguity, too much uncertainty about those final, frantic seconds. The judge said the evidence pointed to a tragic accident and not intentional murder. Alexandria walked out of the courtroom a free woman, but the questions remained. Was she a cold-blooded killer who got away with murdering her twin, or was she a victim of a terrible tragedy, forever haunted by the death of her sister? The verdict didn't provide closure. It only deepened the mystery. After the trial, Alexandria, or Allison, as she was born, disappeared from the public eye, leaving the world to wonder about the truth of what happened on that winding Hawaiian highway. The story of the Duval twins is a chilling cautionary tale about how codependency and rivalry can fester into something deadly. Their lives were a performance, a carefully constructed image of unity and spiritual peace that concealed a dark and violent reality. They were each other's greatest love and greatest enemy, a perfect reflection of both their dreams and their demons. The crash that killed Anastasia didn't just end one life, it shattered the illusion they had spent their entire lives building. What remains is a tragic legacy of debt, betrayal, and a fatal plunge into darkness, leaving behind a haunting question. Can you ever truly know the secrets hidden within a family, even one as seemingly close as identical twins? The truth, it seems, went over the cliff with them, lost forever in the waves off the coast of Maui. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as compelling as we did, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the most mysterious and fascinating cases. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.